Hey there, welcome to the latest episode of Hiker Homily. I'm out here at the Cosumnes River Preserve, just taking a nice little walk around and having a good time. I've only been out here for about a mile, right around 20 minutes, and I've already seen a coyote, several riparian brush rabbits, and of course at the Cosumnes River Preserve, lots and lots of various types of birds. So that's kind of cool. But today for Hiker Homily, I wanted to talk a little bit about apps or maps, because it's yet another thing that online hikers just love to argue about and get snarky about, and it's just one of those things that in my mind there's absolutely no reason to argue about it or even really choose. So just a quick one on that, and here we go. So apps or maps. If you're lucky enough to hike in a place like the Cosumnes River Preserve, they put maps on their trail signs. That's kind of cool. So you don't even have to carry a map because there's one there. But then again, if you're going to do the be prepared thing, which you always should, what if that's been damaged or taken down? And this is hard metal, by the way. That's an actual picture on the hard metal. That's not like paper posted over it or something like that. That's pretty tough. It's going to take a while to wear that sucker out. But it could happen, and it's not like this is a gigantic place. The trails are pretty easy to discern, but apps or maps. I'm one of those weirdos who says, why not both? We live in the modern world. Because they both have their advantages. Maps are never going to run out of batteries. They're not going to break if you drop them, and things like that. Disadvantages of a map, though, they can be destroyed. They're paper. They can get wet and be useless and things that way. You can lose them, things like that. And also maps nowadays are static. They give you your basic position, and that's good. That's what they're for, but they don't give you any other information. Where a lot of apps nowadays can do a lot more than just give you information on where you're at. For example, the Guthooks app. And by the way, as always, I got to say, I am not sponsored by any companies. If I mention any companies or any specific apps or any specific types of maps, it's not because they paid me to. It's not because I'm sponsored in any way by them. It's because I'm a hiker and that's what I have an experience with, so I'm going to mention it. So, the Guthooks app. One of the reasons why I enjoy it when I'm on one of the trails that they do cover is it's more than just a locator for me. It helps me plan a hike as I'm going. It tells me where established camping spots are, so I know in this many miles there's an established spot. If I want to stop, I have that option. Or maybe it's a good place for lunch, or yes, that's what I'm aiming for the end of the day, is to camp in that spot. It'll tell me about water sources, and it'll give me a good chance on, is it a so-so water source? Is it a very reliable water source? But the even better thing about Guthooks specifically is it has real-time user messages in it. So in other words, if I am using the Guthook app and I come across a certain water source marked on it and it's dry, I can type into the map, here on this date, no water. And so anyone behind me on the trail that day or a few days later can look at that, use the app and say, I can't count on that for water because so-and-so was there just a day ago and it was completely dry. Okay? Maps can't do that kind of thing. So, you've always got the smart aleck, salty people who just can't resist when they're online and people start talking about, oh, I just love Guthooks. Or somebody will come on, hey, what's a good app you guys use? Oh, I use the such and such GPS app. I use this app. I use that app. Always got to be somebody that comes online and says, for years, people hiked without things on their phone and stuff like that. They have these things called maps, and they survive just fine. Okay. My first response to someone who's being a salty smartass like that is, how do you get to work? What's that? You take your car, or even if you carpool, hey, that's nice. But people for years and centuries before we domesticated horses even had to walk to work. So get your ass out of that car. if you're going to have that kind of attitude about apps and things like that for hiking, because they didn't exist, that means we shouldn't use them now because they do exist now. Yeah, whatever. It's just people being snarky and salty for no reason. If a person wants to use an app, let them use an app. Shut the hell up. Yes, there's disadvantages to apps too. Apps by nature on a phone. If the phone runs out of battery or gets damaged or lost, now you've lost your app. Yep. You can damage or lose a map too. Not as easily as a phone maybe. And definitely maps won't run out of batteries, but they both have advantages and disadvantages, and it's absolutely ridiculous to say, now that we're living in the modern age, hey, you know, people never used to do just fine without them, so that's my reason for snarking off to you and saying blah, blah, blah. Okay, good for you. Don't use an app then. Be the old school guy and use a map. Good for you. That's awesome. I'm that middle of the road person. Why not both? I use apps to help me because they are convenient. They have a lot of real-time features like I described there. So it's more than just, hey, this is where I'm at. It's I can help me plan where water sources are and all kinds of other things like that, and know if those water sources are reliable using certain apps and things like that. And it's a little more compact. But I always have a backup map with me and compass, and I know how to use them. That's the important thing too. Doesn't do you any good to carry a map and compass if you don't know how to use one and how to do orienteering. So learn how to do that. But it's it's the truth. There's nothing wrong with carrying both. A map, especially, and a compass is almost negligible weight. So having a redundant system for navigation is a good thing and doesn't blow away ultralight backpacking and things like that. But it's just that's the thing, is if you are not carrying an app simply because people hiked before without them, so blah blah, okay, great. There's a lot of things we do now that we never could do or did do because the thing hadn't been invented. Now they've been invented and we do it. Okay, you know, by that logic, there's a whole bunch of things you should stop doing right now. For one thing, get the hell off the internet. Because people for a long time communicated with letters and talked to each other in town meetings. They didn't have electronic stuff. So, okay, well then what are you doing on the internet snarking off to people? Get the hell off the internet and write letters to people. Oh, no, you're not going to do that? It's totally different? No, it's not. It's still modern technology. And you're using it. So in hiking comes along, it's the same argument they use with the emergency beacons. Why would you not have one if it doesn't cost that much? It doesn't cost that much in weight and things like that. But in an emergency, it can help you out, maybe even save your life. You're not going to carry one because people 30 years ago didn't have them and they were just fine. No, they weren't. People 30 years ago died on the trail. And people die on the trail now. But you know what I'm saying, for crying out loud. It does good and it helps, but I'm not going to carry one because old school. Okay, good for you, old schooler. When I see you on the bottom of a ravine, I'm going to have my emergency beacon and I'll just walk on past you because you're going to old school your ass out of there, right? Sure you are. It's just that kind of silly attitude. And half the time I think it's a bunch of bullcrap too. Half the people who say that probably actually do use apps on their phone or have an emergency beacon. They're just being a smartass and saying it to troll. It's ridiculous. So, apps or maps? Both. There's nothing wrong with carrying both. Apps have advantages. They can do a lot of things that maps can't do. And at the same time, having a map as a backup is a good thing because you are not reliant on battery power or any of that kind of thing to use them, as long as you are trained in how to use a map, read a map, and orienteering with a compass. Otherwise, it's not going to be as much of a help, but it's still good to have one. So apps or maps? Both. That's my take on it. Hey, rant over. I'm out here still enjoying the Cosumnes River Preserve, and that's what I'm going to do for a little while longer. So thanks very much for joining me as usual. My little channel, I'm having fun with it. I hope you guys find it interesting too. If you have any comments on that, any app or map stories, fine. If you just want to be a troll and be salty about things, you're going to get ignored. But if you have legitimate comments you want to make about apps or maps, advantages, disadvantages, maybe some anecdotal stories just for fun, go ahead and share them in the comments below, the comments on Patreon, the comments on Instagram. And of course, as always, you can get a hold of me at hikingforhealthca@gmail.com. And other than that, thanks very much. I'm going to head into the Oak Woods and hope that the Cosumnes River has not flooded over the trail to get into it, because sometimes that happens. We'll see. Other than that, I will catch you later. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.